Samuel Richardson. Samuel Richardson was an English writer and printer, best known for his pioneering work in the epistolary novel genre. His significant contributions to literature include three major novels: Pamela or Virtue Rewarded, Clarissa or The History of a Young Lady, and The History of Sir Charles Grandison. Samuel Richardson had a successful career as a printer, producing nearly 500 works, including journals and magazines. He collaborated with London bookseller Andrew Miller and gained prominence in the book trade, becoming a member, officer, and later master of the Stationers' Company. Richardson was apprenticed to a printer and eventually married his printer employer's daughter. Unfortunately, he lost his wife and 5 sons. He later remarried and had 4 daughters. Despite his success in the print business, he did not have male heirs to continue the family print shop. Richardson began his literary career relatively late, writing his first novel at the age of 51. His decision to enter the world of fiction was partly driven by financial considerations. He had notable acquaintances in the literary world, including Samuel Johnson, Sarah Fielding, George Shane, and William Law. He also printed some poems by John Byrom at Law's request. Samuel Richardson's contribution to the novel genre, particularly his development of the epistolary form, had a lasting impact on English literature. His works, especially Pamela and Clarissa, continue to be studied for their exploration of character psychology and moral dilemmas. Despite late entry into the literary world, Richardson's novels remain significant and influential in the history of English fiction. Clarissa. Clarissa, or The History of a Young Lady, is a monumental work of epistolary fiction, often regarded as one of the longest novels ever written in English. It explores complex themes of love, virtue, and morality through the letters of its characters. The tragic story revolves around the virtuous Clarissa Harlowe and her sinister suitor Lovelace. The History of Sir Charles Grandison. In this novel, Richardson presents Sir Charles Grandison as a model of benevolence. The story delves into themes of love, honor, and relationships. It also highlights Sir Charles's interactions with 2 women, Harriet Byron and Signora Clementina, exploring their complex emotional struggles. Pamela. Pamela or Virtue Rewarded. This novel is considered one of the earliest examples of the epistolary novel in English literature. It tells the story of Pamela, a young servant girl who resists the advances of her employer and is eventually rewarded for her virtue. 2 years after the publication of Pamela or Virtue Rewarded, Richardson published a sequel, Pamela in Her Exalted Condition. He revisited the theme of the rake in his Clarissa and sought to create a male Pamela in Sir Charles Grandison. Since Ian Watt discussed it in The Rise of the Novel, Studies in Defoe, Richardson and Fielding in 1957, literary critics and historians have generally agreed that Pamela played a critical role in developing the novel in English. Characters of Pamela. Pamela Andrews, the novel's 15-year-old pious protagonist who narrates the novel. Her deceased employer passes her on to her son, Mr. B, who puts her through numerous sexual advances and even assaults before she eventually concedes and marries him. Pamela originally came to the estate as a young servant looking to make money to send to her parents back home. Pamela is also noted to value her virtue before anything else. Her virtue and her moral beliefs become her controlling purpose, which creates tension between her and her employer, who is making multiple advances towards her. John and Elizabeth Andrews. Pamela's father and mother, to whom Pamela's letters are addressed. Pamela hears only from her father, who appears in the novel alone of her parents. Mr. Williams. A young clergyman who attempts to help Pamela escape Mr. B's estate and delivers letters to her family. He offers to marry Pamela to secure her from Mr. B's unwanted advances, but she denies him. Mr. B has Williams taken away to debtor's prison. Mr. B, Pamela's lascivious and abusive employer who falls in love with and eventually marries her. Lady B, deceased. Mr. B's and Lady Davers' mother, Pamela's late employer. Lady Davers, Mr. B's sister. She initially disapproves of Pamela's union with Mr. B for her lower class, but eventually warms to the modest girl. Mrs. Jervis, the elderly housekeeper of Mr. B's Bedfordshire estate. As stated in a letter to her parents, she becomes one of Pamela's best friends. Despite her good intention, she is nearly useless in preventing Mr. B's unwanted advances on Pamela. Mrs. Dukes, the housekeeper of Mr. B's Lincolnshire estate. She holds Pamela at the estate according to Mr. B's wishes and is entirely dutiful to him. She warms to Pamela once she marries Mr. B. Sally Godfrey. Mr. B's mistress from his college days. He has a daughter by Mr. B but removed to Jamaica and married another. Monsieur Colbrand helps in keeping Pamela at the Lincolnshire estate but proves to be protecting her and helps her escape from Lady Davers. Miss Goodwin, the daughter of Mr. B and Sally Godfrey. Summary of the novel. Pamela tells the story of a 15-year-old maidservant named Pamela Andrews, whose employer, Mr. B, a wealthy landowner, makes unwanted and inappropriate advances towards her after the death of his mother. Pamela strives to reconcile her solid religious training with her desire for her employer's approval in a series of letters and later in the novel journal entries all addressed to her impoverished parents. After various unsuccessful attempts at seduction, a series of sexual assaults, and an extended kidnapping period, the rakish Mr. B eventually reforms and makes Pamela a sincere proposal of marriage. In the novel's second part, Pamela marries Mr. B and tries to acclimatize to her new position in upper-class society. Themes of the novel. Pamela was an early commentary on domestic violence and questioned the dynamic line between male aggression and a contemporary view of love. Moreover, despite the controversies, Pamela shed light on social issues that transcended the novel for the time, such as gender roles, early false imprisonment, and class barriers present in the 18th century. The novel's action is told through letters and journal entries from Pamela to her parents. Richardson highlights a theme of naivety illustrated through the eyes of Pamela. Richardson paints Pamela herself as innocent and meek to further contribute to the theme of her being short-sighted, to emphasize the ideas of childhood innocence and naivety. The Four Wheels of English Novel. Henry Fielding. Henry Fielding was an English novelist, playwright, satirist, and magistrate. He is best known for his novel Tom Jones and is considered one of the founders of the traditional English novel. Fielding's works often featured earthy humor and satire, and he made significant contributions to both literature and law enforcement during his lifetime. Henry Fielding was born in Somerset in 1707. His early life was marked by legal matters as he became involved in a custody battle after his mother's death. His grandmother successfully challenged his father's custodianship. He attended Eton, where he met future Prime Minister William Pitt the Elder. However, Fielding's life took a dramatic turn when he attempted to abduct his cousin, an heiress, and had to flee the country. He continued his education in classics and law at Leiden before returning to England. Facing financial challenges, Fielding turned to writing, as did his sister, the novelist Sarah Fielding. He wrote satirical plays that sharply criticized Prime Minister Sir Robert Walpole, leading to the Theatrical Licensing Act of 1737, which aimed to curb such criticism. Despite his initial success in writing, Fielding returned to his legal career to support his family. He became a successful barrister and magistrate, co-founding the Bow Street Runners, an early form of a police force in London. Fielding's work as a magistrate influenced much of his later writing. Fielding's entry into fiction was driven by his satirical inclinations. He parodied Samuel Richardson's popular novel Pamela with Shamela, a satirical novella that mocked Richardson's style and characters. He continued to satirize Richardson's work in Joseph Andrews, a comic epic poem in prose that followed the adventures of Pamela's brother. However, Fielding's most celebrated work is Tom Jones, a picaresque novel that is considered a milestone in the development of the 18th century novel. It combines moral seriousness with comic adventure. Fielding's later works included Amelia, which explored themes of marriage and feminine intelligence. Fielding had a family of his own, with 5 children from his first wife, Charlotte Craddock. After Charlotte's death, he scandalized society by marrying her maidservant, Mary Daniel, with whom he had 5 more children. In his later years, Fielding continued to write satirical pieces for newspapers and pamphlets while pursuing his career as a magistrate. He also advocated for judicial and prison reform. Fielding's health declined in the 1750s and he sought medical care in Lisbon, where he passed away in 1754. Henry Fielding's contributions to literature, particularly his innovative narrative techniques and satirical style, continue to be celebrated today. His novels remain influential in the development of the English novel. Shamela. Shamela, formerly known as An Apology for the Life of Mrs. Shamela Andrews, is a satirical novella authored by Henry Fielding and published in 1741. Although Fielding never openly acknowledged his authorship, it is widely attributed to him. The work was first published in April 1741 under the pseudonym Mr. Connie Caber. It serves as a direct attack on the immensely popular novel Pamela by Fielding's contemporary and rival Samuel Richardson. Like Pamela, Shamela is written in the epistolary form. The novella begins with a letter from Parson Thomas Tickletext to his friend Parson J. Oliver expressing his admiration for Pamela. Tickletext urges Oliver to read the book. However, Oliver responds by revealing Pamela's true nature, supported by incriminating letters. The narrative unfolds through letters exchanged among key characters, including Shamela, revealed as Pamela's true name, her mother, Master Booby, Mrs. Jewix, Mrs. Jervis, and Reverend Arthur Williams, mirroring the epistolary style of Pamela. In this version, Pamela's father is entirely absent. Shamela shockingly portrays Pamela, initially depicted as a virtuous and humble servant, as a wicked and lascivious figure. Instead of her virtuous facade, Shamela is unveiled as the daughter of a London prostitute, scheming to trap her master, Squire Booby, into marriage. The novella uses hyperbolic verbal and physical violence to render the supposed love match between Shamela and Booby contemptible and absurd. The Life and Death of the Late Jonathan Wild the Great. The Life and Death of the Late Jonathan Wild the Great is a satirical novel penned by Henry Fielding. It was published in 1743 as part of Fielding's third volume of Miscellanies. The novel presents a satirical account of the life of Jonathan Wild, a notorious London underworld boss who lived from 1682 to 1725. Jonathan Wild worked as a thief-taker, capturing criminals and delivering them to the authorities to collect rewards. However, he also profited by managing an underground network of criminals who paid him to avoid being reported. Fielding's novel serves as an experiment in various narrative genres popular at the time, including serious history, criminal biography, political satire, and picaresque storytelling. Some argue that the novel primarily satirizes Britain's first Prime Minister, Robert Walpole, as political opponents continuously accused him of corruption. The narrative features an interpolated romantic story, a departure from other accounts of Jonathan Wild's life. This addition may reflect Fielding's attempt to transform the criminal biography of Wild into a novel, aligning with the emerging popularity of the novel format during his era. Amelia. Amelia is a sentimental novel authored by Henry Fielding, published in December 1751. It represents Fielding's fourth and final novel, released in only one edition during his lifetime, despite an initial print run of 5,000 copies. The novel revolves around the life of Amelia and Captain William Booth following their marriage. Amelia includes numerous allusions to classical literature and focuses on themes of marriage and feminine intelligence. Notably, Fielding's exact stance on gender issues remains unclear due to the absence of authorial commentary on the matter. While Amelia received praise from many writers and critics, it also faced substantial criticism from Fielding's literary competitors, potentially linked to the ongoing paper war in which the author was engaged. Joseph Andrews. Joseph Andrews is a pioneering novel by the English author Henry Fielding, published in 1742. Fielding humorously defines it as a comic epic poem in prose. The story follows the adventures of Joseph Andrews, a good-natured footman, and his mentor, Parson Abraham Adams, as they journey home from London. Contextually, Fielding originally conceived Joseph Andrews as a burlesque and parody of Samuel Richardson's novel Pamela. However, as the narrative unfolds, it transcends its initial parodic intentions and evolves into a masterful work of irony and social critique. The novel begins with Joseph Andrews, who serves as a footman, setting out on a journey home with his friend and mentor, Parson Adams. Throughout their adventures, they encounter various characters and situations that serve as vehicles for exposing the hypocrisy and affectations of others. At the center of the narrative is Parson Adams, a significant and enduring comic figure in literature. Fielding's Joseph Andrews uses humor and satire to comment on human nature, societal norms, and the foibles of individuals. It navigates the complexities of morality and virtue while highlighting the innocence and guiltlessness of the central characters. The novel's development and its satirical elements make it a notable contribution to the literary landscape of the 18th century. Tom Jones, 1749. Tom Jones, also known as The History of Tom Jones, a Foundling, is a classic comic novel written by English playwright and novelist Henry Fielding and first published in 1749. It is considered one of the earliest English novels and is celebrated for its intricate plot and satirical wit. The novel follows the adventures and misadventures of the title character Tom Jones, who is discovered as a foundling in the bed of the benevolent and wealthy Mr. Allworthy. Although Tom receives a good upbringing, he falls out of favor with his benefactor due to a romantic liaison with Molly Seagrim, the daughter of the estate's gamekeeper. His tumultuous love life also includes his affection for the virtuous Sophia Western, the daughter of Squire Western, a blunt and passionate fox hunter. Throughout the novel, Tom encounters a wide range of characters, each representing different moral qualities. He faces the enmity of Bill Phil, his half-brother, and a hypocrite who aims to marry Sophia. His adventures lead him to travel alongside Partridge, a lovable and simple schoolmaster. Meanwhile, Sophia, who loves Tom and seeks to escape her forced marriage to Bill Phil, flees to London with her maid, Mrs. Honor. The novel delves into themes of virtue and vice, hypocrisy, villainy, and redemption. Tom Jones embodies good-heartedness despite his flaws, while Bill Phil epitomizes hypocrisy. Other characters such as Squire Allworthy and Mrs. Waters add depth to the exploration of virtue and vice. Additionally, Fielding uses the novel to comment on various aspects of society and culture. He includes introductory chapters and interspersed commentary that critique bad writers and critics, as well as expresses his opposition to Methodism and its association with hypocrisy. Set against the backdrop of the Jacobite Rising of 1745, Tom Jones also explores the characters' differing stances on the rebellion, which aimed to restore Roman Catholicism in England. Henry Fielding's Tom Jones is celebrated for its humor, complexity, and its contribution to the development of the English novel. It remains a significant work in the canon of English literature and continues to be appreciated for its vivid characters and social commentary. Laurence Sterne. Laurence Sterne was an Irish-born English novelist and humorist known for his pioneering works, The Life and Opinions of Tristram Shandy, Gentleman, and A Sentimental Journey Through France and Italy. His innovative narrative techniques and satirical style made significant contributions to the development of the novel. Laurence Sterne was born in County Tipperary, Ireland in 1730. His family faced poverty and frequent relocations due to his father's military postings. When Sterne's father was sent to Jamaica and subsequently died in 1731, Laurence was placed under the care of a wealthy uncle who supported his education. Sterne attended Jesus College, Cambridge, following the footsteps of his grandfather, who had been the master of the college. After becoming an Anglican priest, he took up the vicarship of Sutton-on-the-Forest. It was during this time that he married Elizabeth Lumley, and they lived in Sutton-on-the-Forest for 2 decades. Sterne initially wrote articles supporting Sir Robert Walpole for Whig political journals, encouraged by his uncle, Archdeacon Jacques Sterne. However, he later abandoned political controversialism due to a mismatch in political fervency, leading to a rift with his uncle. Sterne continued writing, with his first major work being a satire of spiritual courts titled A Political Romance. Sterne's fictional alter ego, Parson Yorick, first appeared in Tristram Shandy, and later became a central character in A Sentimental Journey Through France and Italy. Yorick's character and persona reflected Sterne's sensibilities. Sterne developed a deep emotional connection with Eliza Draper, the wife of an East India Company official, during his final years. Their correspondence inspired Sterne's work, and he wrote the autobiographical Journal to Eliza under the pseudonym Yorick. Even after Eliza returned to India, their letters continued, and some were published after Sterne's death in Letters from Yorick to Eliza. Some of his notable works include Tristram Shandy. Published in 9 volumes, this novel is characterized by its unconventional narrative style, with the protagonist Tristram Shandy frequently digressing and providing humorous anecdotes. The novel explores themes such as birth, names, and accidents while delving into the quirks of human nature, considered a precursor to the stream of consciousness narrative technique. Another major work is A Sentimental Journey Through France and Italy. Published shortly before Sterne's death, this work combines autobiography, fiction, and travel writing. The novel chronicles the journey of the sensitive and charming young man Yorick and his servant La Fleur through France. It defies conventional expectations of travel literature with its mixture of affecting vignettes and comic episodes, emphasizing the interplay between sentimental and erotic feelings. Laurence Sterne's writings continue to be celebrated for their innovation and humor, leaving a lasting impact on the development of the novel as a literary form. Tobias Smollett. Tobias Smollett was a Scottish satirical novelist known for his picaresque novels, The Adventures of Roderick Random and The Adventures of Peregrine Pickle, as well as his epistolary book, The Expedition of Humphrey Clinker. Tobias Smollett come from a family with a background in law and military service. They held Whig political beliefs and were of the Presbyterian faith. He attended Dumbarton Grammar School and later studied at the University of Glasgow. He also underwent an apprenticeship with surgeons William Stirling and John Gordon in Glasgow. Smollett's literary career began with his publication of the poem The Tears of Scotland in 1746, focusing on the Battle of Culloden. However, he gained widespread recognition with the publication of The Adventures of Roderick Random in 1748, a semi-autobiographical work portraying a Scottish character's experiences. Following this success, Smollett wrote The Adventures of Peregrine Pickle in 1751, which also gained popularity. Despite his literary achievements, he faced financial difficulties leading to a period of debt. Smollett associated with prominent literary figures of his time, including David Garrick, Laurence Sterne, Oliver Goldsmith, and Samuel Johnson, whom he famously nicknamed that great sham of literature. In 1755, Smollett published an English translation of Miguel de Cervantes' Don Quixote, further establishing his reputation as a writer. In 1756, he briefly served as the editor of the Universal History and the Critical Review. However, his time as an editor led to a libel case brought against him by Admiral Sir Charles Knowles, resulting in a prison sentence and a fine. Smollett's major work during this period was A Complete History of England, which helped him recover financially. He also wrote a farce titled The Reprisal of the Towers of Old England, his only performed play. In 1763, Smollett faced personal challenges including illness, possibly tuberculosis, and the loss of his only child. He and his wife Nancy embarked on a journey to Europe, which inspired travels through France and Italy, published in 1766. His other notable works include The History and Adventures of an Atom, a commentary on British politics during the 7 Years' War, and The Expedition of Humphrey Clinker, published in the year of his death. Themes in The Adventures of Roderick Random. The Adventures of Roderick Random explores themes such as hypocrisy, greed, deceit, snobbery, and social injustices prevalent in the 18th century. Smollett uses the novel to candidly depict the Royal Navy's brutality, incompetence, and corruption, drawing from his own experiences during the Battle of Cartagena in 1741. The novel also addresses topics like privateering, slavery, prostitution, dowries, homosexuality, debtors' prisons, political patronage, clergy, the practice of medicine, and corruption, reflecting the author's first-hand encounters and critical perspective. Throughout the novel, the protagonist Roderick Random is referred to as a North Briton, highlighting the political context of the Act of Union between England and Scotland in 1707. Smollett's work offers a satirical and unfiltered view of the society and culture of his time, making a lasting impact on the genre of picaresque novels.